you
live
feel
right now,
comfortable,
right?
we are 100%
Yeah.
live, by the way.
No, I'm happy to talk about this actually because I think I feel like it's something everyone should do. So my older kid is 13, and like I am a cook slash chef, whatever that, whatever the difference is
Bro,
to
you are
people.
far more than just cook, sir.
But yeah, but I mean, it's like I feel like a chef is like a guy with a clipboard, and a cook is like the guy sweating over the fire. For sure, I do a little bit of both, but whatever. So, we've done a bunch of like eating throughout the course of my kid's life, but tonight was our first fancy dinner date. We went out to a really fancy dinner,
Ooh.
and they had a bunch of nice non-alcoholic cocktails for my kid, and um, we just had like a bunch of courses of just like wild, interesting food, and it was awesome.
What
It was
was
just
the
like a
craziest
really,
thing you ate?
huh. We went to this restaurant called Estella. I'm trying to think if they had this one thing that was just kind of like crab and butter and uh, black truffles tossed, and it was
Mm.
like laid under these like really thin slices of celery root. Um, and it was simple, but it was just like it was just like really, really tasty.
Oof.
Um,
Ooh.
and but it was, yeah, I mean, the food was awesome, but it was more about like just like our time, like just like hanging out and just like sitting at dinner and having like a nice meal. And it
How,
takes a while, so we just like chat, and like you don't. I never did that with my dad when I was a kid. Um, Not that I'm like one-upping my dad right now, but like it's just that it was just nice to spend time with my kid.
for those who are just joining us, I recognize we did not do the intro, but I've been enjoying doing the intros in this way. But welcome to another episode of Late Night Bitcoin. It is I, your host
Cheers.
Q, and I'm joined by tonight's guest, Awayslice, and we
Thanks for
are,
having me.
oh, dude, of course. I genuinely, this is one that I've been looking forward to for a while.
Awesome.
I've been on a bit of a streak where I've done very little Bitcoin and a lot more just whatever our heart desires. And this one is one that I am looking forward to because I've been, for myself at least, cooking a lot more. And dude, when you post like little hint recipes, things like that, my bookmarks are full of your little tips and tricks of cooking. So I am very, very honored and humbled that you're taking the time to chat with me tonight, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you. What have you been cooking?
Ooh, last night I do my normal pasta. I make a bolognese. I cheat a little bit and I do use the Rayo's sort of sauce, but I, you know, keep it simple, usually garlic, onion, mushrooms, and then it's the spice core is primarily paprika and then some salt, pepper, but simple. It comes out great against the and some garlic powder, of course. I overdo it on garlic powder, but I don't care. It's so good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you know the whole like story of Rouse and like the history of Rouse? Have you ever heard that?
I have, but honestly, it's like I'm so intrigued by this restaurant. So I used to live in LA, a block and a half away from the LA location in Hollywood. So I used to go there twice a week. But please, like I want it like share these stories.
I actually don't know a ton about it. I know that there's like the New York version of Rouse has
Mhm.
like 10 or 12 tables. I mean, for like it's like a way uptown tiny Italian restaurant.
Well, it's
And like you
it,
really can't. It's not. It's so small. It's almost not open to the public. You have to
well,
like.
no, it's not open to the public. Have you
I've
ever
never been there.
gone?
No, I've
Okay,
never been there.
so I have heard how it works. It is you buy it almost like they sell each table. There are only 10 tables, and they literally sell a season pass for the year. And so someone will buy the right to the table for the whole year. and that is the person who holds the reservation. So you can't contact Rayos to get a reservation. You have to know who has the table, and people will give it as gifts. People will go themselves. People will sell it off, raffle it off, whatever they do with it. But that's why it's considered one of the hardest reservations to get in New York, because you can't actually call the restaurant to get it.
That's so funny. I don't. I mean, is it good? I don't even. I've never been there. Like, I don't even know if it's good. I like the tomato sauce. I think it's good.
Oh,
It's
honestly, like I genuinely ate there twice a week. It is heaven on earth if you like pasta. Like, the trick is you can get the pastas in half size. They have one in Vegas as well. So if next time you're in LA or Vegas, just go. Highly recommend. And the pastas come in half portions as well. So then you can do like more mix and match stuff. If you go on Sunday, just get the Sunday feast. It's literally just like a bowl of all these different meats, and the chef just comes in the morning and just like throws everything into a pot, and it's just been cooking overnight for like 24 hours, just stewing there, only available on Sundays, but it's incredible. I love the meatballs.
that's
My
awesome.
order was, I would just order the fried mozz and meatball, and I would just get that after work some nights and just like go pick it up and go back to my apartment. I
That's awesome.
weirdly know too much about Rayos. It also was like one of the was like notorious for being like a mob restaurant early on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no question. It's like a total like mafia.
Yeah.
Like all these people have been like shot there and stuff like that. It's like a weird, like a bizarre New York red sauce joint history thing going on.
Yeah. But
Um,
no, if you could ever, that should be on your list for you and your son next time that you guys have the opportunity.
yeah, yeah. Well, I gotta try it out. I mean, for sure, I should prioritize it. I could figure out a way to get in there. Um, that's awesome. I gotta do that. Um,
What's one restaurant where you like genuinely my go-to restaurant in LA when I'm like, are you in the mood for Italian food? I send people to Rayo's. Like, what is one restaurant where you're like, this is, I know every time I send someone here, it's just a home run. No questions asked.
I feel like you got to know your audience a little bit. I feel, and when people come to New York, I want to send them to, uh, shit they can only get in New York, right? So
Mhm.
like, um, so for an example, I'll send people to Katz's, where you get like
Mm.
a crazy huge pastrami sandwich, and I think that's awesome. And like, I don't understand people that don't love that. But the thing about the downside to cats is like it's a shit show. Like you go in there, there's a line. You get in there, and it's like if you don't know how it works, you kind of get like walked all over, like which is like just a New York thing. But there's all these like. Have you ever been to Katz's?
I think one time in college.
So basically, like you walk in, it's like a giant old deli. The history of Katz's, by the way, is that was a Jewish neighborhood, and there used to be all these delis down there, and they were all kosher, and and because they were kosher, like if you're kosher, you can't mix meat and cheese.
Mhm.
um Katz's was one of the first delis to go non-kosher, where you can put uh cheese on meat and have a Reuben, where you get like pastrami and put like Swiss cheese on it and stuff like that. And for that reason, they were one of the people that survived, because they just like cranked out for everybody. Whereas like all where just the the Jewish delis that stayed true to kosher had just
Sort of got
smaller
weeded
markets.
out.
Yeah, yeah, they just couldn't keep up. So, anyways, if you go in there, they're just like cranking out pastrami, and there's all these dudes. There's like 4 or 5 dudes, and their role is like the slicer, and each dude has a line. So there'll be like 4 or 5 or more lines. And when you get in there, you have to get in a line. But it doesn't look like that. It just looks like a fucking mob waiting for pastrami. Um, so if you don't realize you got to get in line, you could really stand there for a while before you realize you got to get in line, and then you get in line, and then you got to stand there for a little while longer before you get your pastrami. But like as a New Yorker, like if you and I went there, we could just like muscle in there, and I'd be like, hey, Jose, what's up? Like, we're here for the fun. And then they like make us our sandwiches, and we're sitting down when everybody else is like still waiting at the front because they don't
Okay.
know how it works.
I'm definitely
And there's
texting you to make sure you come with me to Katz's.
yeah, there's no like, but whatever. So for that reason, the food is great, but just the overall experience, maybe it's not for everybody. But I like stuff like that. Like that's where I send people to have like food that they can't get outside of New York City.
Valid. Valid. I have kind of a stupid question. Born and raised
Shoot.
West Coast because it is the best coast. Um, is it actually are like the bagels and pizzas actually different because the dough is made with the water in the Hudson? Is that like a thing, or was that just a thing people said to fuck with me in college?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that everyone says. I don't like. I think the answer is no. Like, what's in the water? It's just like mineral content. Like, it doesn't. It's not like more wet here than it is out there. Like it's water.
But like
Um,
they swear, like people swear by that. I genuinely there was a period of time in college where people would say that. I was like, are you actually on crack? Like, what is wrong with you?
I mean, I have legit heard where like there's like a place in Boston that makes bagels that like legit just trucks
The
New York
water
tap
up.
water to Boston to make bagels, which is
I've heard that,
just it's just so stupid.
dude, there was a place in DC that did that. Like genuinely, like a group of like kids in my fraternity who were New Yorkers. They only ate at that bagel shop because they were like they bring the water down from New York, and I was like,
Yeah,
what the like what? But that said, like In and Out is the greatest burger ever. Shout out Chris. I mean, like Chris brings up a great point. It's like the iron and the toxins. It's like, okay, if the water is making a difference, that's probably not a good thing. Like it can't
yeah,
be.
maybe. So do you ever listen to the Andrew Huberman podcast? Do you
I
know him?
don't. I
I mean,
don't. Tell me
he's kind of
more.
like I like it. It's just like it's every episode is like 3 or 4 hours long, so it's ridiculous. And he's a research scientist. And I sometimes it's kind of life changing, but a lot of times it's not. He should do a better job of just like fucking condensing his information. Anyways, the reason I mentioned him is because they did an episode this week about water, and it's just like, what's the real story with water? Like, should you filter it? Should you worry about pH balance? Should you, all that stuff? And it's pretty fascinating. And like the TLDR, and he's like the first person to be like, look, I'm not like a crazy like,
Pure water.
uh, yeah, but he's like, you should drink filtered water because a lot of tap water in America is like has shit that we shouldn't be putting in our bodies.
So wait,
Um,
is he saying filtered in the sense of like bottled water or like getting a stronger than your Brita type of filter?
Well, he kind of uses Brita as an example, and he's like, he doesn't say that he uses Brita, but he's just like, I just use a pitcher charcoal filter type thing,
Okay. Okay.
which gets out most of the like an $80 charcoal filter pitcher thing gets out most of the shit that we should not be consuming that is in our tap water.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
obsessed with this kind of stuff. Genuine, like specifically
it
water.
it's
It
worth listening
fascinates
to. I
me.
mean, if you're into what, like it's super fascinating because he talks about how like when we should drink water throughout the day, why it makes a difference, how we should adjust our water if we're working out. Like, it's cool. Like, it's worth listening to. And obviously, like, water is probably like one of the most important things that we all consume.
Oh my
Um,
god.
he,
Sorry. Keep going, please.
no, the other thing he talks about that's really interesting to me is how our performance trails off if we don't consume enough water. Like, and it's not it just just on if whatever we're supposed to be consuming, if we consume 90% of that or 80% of that, just our performance just drops off a cliff. Just like, cognitive performance, athletic performance. Just like if we're dehydrated, like we can't operate it. So it is kind of like just like get a filter, wake up, drink water, that sort of thing. Um, it's cool. Yeah, it probably makes a difference. It's like such an easy, low cost thing to do that makes probably a big improvement in your life. Drink a bunch of water.
Oh, I can tell the difference in how I operate if I've drank enough water in the morning versus if I'm like, oh shit, I'm behind. I need to chug in the afternoon. Or then like the day after I don't drink enough water, it's almost a guaranteed. If I don't get a migraine on the first day and I do it again, I am like on bed. I can't do anything until I like flush out the migraine. It's
Yeah,
so miserable.
yeah,
Um, I don't want to only talk about water because
yeah.
we got some serious business to get to,
All
but
right.
I could genuinely spend the rest of the episode talking about water. Did he talk about in this podcast episode, because I'm not done talking about water, um, did he talk about this like researcher who did in Japan, this doctor who like would prescribe his patients like pure water, not purified water, which is typically what we drink, but like pure water, which left minerals in the water?
Yeah, he does. I'm gonna paraphrase this because I don't remember the exact details. There's all these like alkaline waters and waters with different pH balances. He kind of goes through that. Um, and then he kind of talks about how if, if water has high uh, pH, which means it's more alkaline, then we can absorb the nutrients better, or whatever, absorb the minerals better. And mostly though that mineral is magnesium. And so he kind of talks about how you can add magnesium to water to raise its pH, and having the
Mm.
water be, room temperature helps. Because like obviously if you like cold water, it's way better to drink cold water than it is to just like drink less warm water. Um, in terms of he does kind of like go through and like do a little bit of myth dispelling about the levels of water purity and tastes and stuff like that. I don't know if he references this Japanese study or person at all, like directly. If he did, I didn't recognize it.
No,
Um,
I figured I'd ask, but I'm genuinely gonna go and I will be listening to this episode because I'm so yeah.
you should
As
listen
you
to
can
it.
tell, I go deep into the rabbit holes on some of these water things.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he does like he references a lot of like resources throughout the episode. So you know what I'll do is I'll post it in the Twitter thread after this thing, and
Ooh,
people can
yes.
listen to it.
I will
This is
definitely
worth it's worth
I'll
listening
definitely
to,
do
I
that.
think.
But let's start at least with, the question I ask everyone on this show is tell me about the first time you ever heard about Bitcoin and what was your sort of initial reaction?
Um, the first time, this is a little bit different. This is put differently than people often ask. It's like I think the first time I heard about it,
I,
uh,
I want to hear like genuinely. I'm going for the what most people were skeptical. Like I'm very open about it that I heard about it trying to send myself weed in college, and I was told to go buy stuff on Silk Road, and I was going to, except I didn't want to go buy Bitcoin. I was like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, no,
yeah,
I'll find someone who will accept cash or something.
yeah,
So
for sure, it's like the extra friction for like a kid that wants to get high.
like,
I
just
think that
dumbass.
I think that but like if we had gotten it, we would just fucking spent it on drugs, like whatever. Um,
I
so
didn't
I
deserve
think that
Bitcoin then.
I remember like talking with my friends about it when we were young. Like we kind of didn't have with my buddies we used to do this thing where we would rent an island in Michigan. And it was just like
Wait, that
a
you
dude.
casually just rent islands?
Well, it wasn't like a it sounds fancy, but it was as not fancy as you could get. I mean, it was like
Like, is
a
there a
l-
house that you guys are
it
staying, or
was
are you camping on the
it
island?
was like it was like a log cabin, right?
Okay.
Um, so there was a building, but I wouldn't call it a house. And
Okay.
so we would go up there and we would get in order to get to the island, we would have to take a pontoon boat. But the pontoon boat wasn't like a I mean, it was not a pontoon boat, right? It was just like it was legit like a dock with a motor on it, and it had like lawn chairs and shit on it. So like we would just like all like waddle down this little hill and get on this thing, and there's just like lawn chairs, and one of us would like drive that boat out to the island. And we would just hang out there. But I remember being on that boat. I mean, even calling it a boat is a stretch. Like we were talking about Bitcoin, and it was probably like $50 or something at the time, and it's like I'm sure there was like a Wired article about it or whatever the early stage. That was my first hearing about it, um, and we were all just like, "What's it for?" Like we just kind of talking about like, why does it exist? Um, and it was just like magic internet money at the time. And then like the next steps were just kind of like the different ways that it kind of like it gets shot across your bow as you're like moving through life. It's like a friend bought drugs with it, like, um, and just like, then we would do that every year. And because we talked about it last year, we would talk about the next year. And it's like, now it's $300, like whatever. And, and I live in Brooklyn and there's just Bitcoin ATMs around Brooklyn. And, the thing that like really got me into it was seeing people like wait in line for a Bitcoin ATM for what I probably assume was remittance payments, just like people trying to send money home, like immigrants trying to send money home from
Mhm.
America. Because like I have an adopted brother from Sudan. If he comes back and like works in America for a year or two at a time and goes back and just like we ship him his money, he gets like 60% of it at best. Um,
Right.
just because we're sending him US dollars. And like by the time he gets to him, I mean, he's out in the middle of nowhere in Sudan. He has a phone that works. If he could spend Bitcoin there, he would get all of it, right? But because we're trying to send him dollars, it has to go to like some guy in a big city that goes to another guy who drives it out. It's just like by the time it gets to him, it's just like whittled down to nothing, um, which is what we experienced with taxes, and also what he experienced with taxes before he tried to send it back to Sudan. Like it's like, um, so if that doesn't make you want to use Bitcoin, I don't know what will. It's like he's coming back and like trying to bring it back to his family and kids in Sudan, and it's a nightmare.
Oh man. But I mean that is like the exact reason, at least right now today, the most commonly used reason for Bitcoin. Um, when or how did you get like fully orange pilled then?
So then I kind of like got into. So originally I bought Bitcoin and I just like sat on it like as an investment. I didn't pay any attention. I didn't do any. There was no social side of it for me at all. There was no like I didn't Bitcoin talk forums or Reddit or anything. Like I didn't do any of that stuff. Um, and then when Bitcoin Cash thing happened, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I had no idea. Because I just like watched it, it's like prices started going insane, and there was like another Bitcoin. And I was like, this too, like I was like, I don't like I had Bitcoin during the block size wars, but I just like I had no idea that shit was going on. And that when that turned over was sort of like the end of the it wasn't the end. I don't know. That was shit. That was like shitcoin glory days. Also, I think for a lot of people. So there was a hot second where I tried to have shitcoins, and it was just like I was just like everything was falling off a cliff as I was getting them, and then I was like, oh, this is terrible. And then there was this one shitcoin called Turtle Coin, which was a privacy which was a privacy focused coin, uh, like meme coin based on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And there was like a development community, and that was kind of when I started to like learn about. I was trying to learn Python, and I was starting to learn about you know how everything worked and like running a node and having like a wallet and command line and learning to send and receive and um, it was small enough that I could mine on my computer, like I could mine in command line just on my MacBook. Um, and all of those things kind of like helped me learn the foundation of it. And then they had this Turtle Coin. One of the founders of Turtle Coin wrote this article that is still out there. I looked at it this week, or like in the past couple weeks. I looked at it, which was basically like this is how you fork Turtle Coin, and he was like, "You guys should all make your own coins." And and if you ever try to make your own coin, you realize one, it is just so stupid easy to make your own coin. I mean, it's like once you figure it out, you just all you gotta do is make your own coin. But then once you have your own coin, like the only thing that adds value to it is like uh convincing people that it has value, right? And then there's like a second where you're like, if I can just convince everyone that this is worth something, I'll be rich, right? And then you realize you're like, holy shit, that's what all of these coins are. They're just like some dude fucking made a coin and convinced people it was worth something. And the truth is that like it's just not like it's not, or even if it is for a moment here and there, um like at its foundation it really was just like some guy just like forking off a little coin. There's a lot of these things, they're not new protocols, they're all spin-offs of whatever other thing it is, or they're an ERC20 token with like a, a utility, some utility that they think is going to add value to it. Um,
which
so
also
that
has
was,
not been accomplished yet. It's
yeah,
the utility they've promised, but
yeah. So forking my own coin from Turtle Coin and like realizing that it's just the whole thing is a LARP for everyone was a big orange pill for me. And that was
I
when I was just kind of like, I'm just all right. I'm just done fucking with all of that stuff.
which I respect and admire, and I gotta admit I did not have on my bingo card tonight that I was gonna meet the founder of a shitcoin. That was not that was not on my bingo card.
Well, to be fair, there was no like buying or selling of my shitcoin. Like it
No,
was
no,
just
no,
like,
totally. I'm taking the liberty of taking it that far purely for the
yeah,
spectacle of it.
yeah.
But as someone who at least like had that recognition because you went down that path yourself, like let me ask you this. Like I'm gonna ask you a really easy one, and then I want to ask you one that I'm curious what your answer is. The easy one is like, so would you think that someone like Richard Hart, and that was his mentality of, oh, if everyone can buy into this, I'm gonna be rich.
Do I think that was his mentality?
Mhm. Or
Hmm.
like that is his, like that is where his head is at more or less.
I don't know. I mean, I just like I hesitate to give him that much credit.
Oh, interesting.
Like I just
Interesting.
Is he is he like a malicious genius, or is he just like, did he just get fucking lucky? You know what I mean? Um, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know shit about Richard Hart other than that he posts like ridiculous clothes pictures all the time. And that's part of the like rolling it back to the beginning of our conversation. Uh, I think shit coins are just an incredible waste of time. And like if anything that we do has value or has value and is finite, it's our time. So like my goal is to spend my time going out to dinner with my family and not worrying about Richard Hart or Hex. Like I don't know shit about either of them other than that, like I just see his ridiculous outfits. But his outfits are so ridiculous that I'm just like, he's just out of touch with reality. Like I have no idea what his reality is. But I
Dude,
know, but I know it's not mine.
like so valid. I fall into the camp of Bitcoin Maxi where, like, for example, when the whole FTT debacle went down, I was most proud of the fact that I had never heard of FTT until that moment.
Yeah.
Like that type of stuff I think I appreciate. So I will spare you the follow-up question, which was going to be Vitalik's motives, but I'll,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
switch it.
I
You
can
okay?
answer Vitalik a little bit better. I don't,
Okay, interesting.
but I think they're probably similar. Like I think Vitalik is like straight up a megalomaniac. Like I think he's like he thinks he's a fucking genius, like making something that's creating the world, and he's like he kind of missed the no one should be in charge memo, right?
Right.
But then I also like I wonder about the relationship between he and Joe Lubin, and I think Joe Lubin is way more uh, conniving and manipulative. Um, Obviously, he had that whole thing where he like created a false company and like bought a bunch of Vitalik's Ethereum without Vitalik knowing, and they're clearly fucking liars, and they're even lying to each other. Um, and I just, I just, it that a person knows that it took them whatever 5 years to roll out what they said originally would take 6 months, meaning like switching to proof of stake. And now they switch to proof of stake, and someone will stake their Ethereum knowing they can't unstake it. Um, I, I feel sorry for a person that has all that information and makes that decision, but I also to Vitalik and Joe Lubin, like fuck you guys for letting that be possible. Like that's just like you fucked people over for a long time now, but that feels egregious to me. That they're gonna like force people to lock up their money, knowing that there's like no known date
End
that they
date.
can unlock it. Yeah, I mean that's terrible, and not to mention they can keep their money unlocked and use it against the people that have their money locked up. Like I don't know, that's terrible. I think it's much more clear that at least Joe Lubin is a terrible person, and probably Vitalik. Um, and I just, the Hex guy is just fucking crazy and maybe stupid for what it's worth.
Like, uh, to be honest, like, I think the thing I found most surprising in that was, like, I appreciated both the answers, and I didn't disagree with anything other than just, like, like, how difficult it was to answer it on Richard Hart, but how easy you found it for Vitalik. But your point on just the whole lockup period and how this has turned into a chaotic nightmare, and then now they've slowly started to like dangle the carrot again, like, oh, it's in the next update. Okay, what's the next update? It's like soon, right? Like, no, it's actually, it was supposed to be in this quarter and already has been pushed back to I think it's now like 4 months away or whatever. Um, that said, and I feel bad that I waste this brain space knowing this, so I feel like unfortunately you're about to have to waste this brain space. Um, having dealt with enough hexagons, I've learned a little bit of what this scam is like, and it's straight up. They've just locked their money up, like they've staked it to Richard Hart himself,
So
and
I
then
don't understand. Can you tell me? Can you give me like a brief primer on hex? 'Cause I don't. I legit don't know anything about it.
the
Is it a proof of
the
stake coin where like does it provide yield or something? Like what's happening here?
he claims to provide yield if you stake it with him, then like he just airdrops more kind of a thing. The exact details and the mechanisms behind it, like I won't try to pretend like I know,
Yeah.
nor do I frankly want to spend the time learning. Um, I've just for me, like for example, I've been reading the book 48 Laws of Power recently, and I
Oh,
kid you not, like that when they talk about like how the con artists of the past like swindle people, I'm like, okay, so that's Richard Hart doing this. That's okay,
yeah.
that's Richard Hart doing that. Okay. Like there's a degree where like I see okay, all these people have left their money on Pulse Chain with one person having the access to all of this money, and he is promising you that hey, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm gonna make you rich. Meanwhile, he is going around flaunting all the money he's spending, all the cars he has, dimes, all of this stuff. And then no one is asking the question, okay, but where did you make your money? Because at the end of the day, what sometimes people don't want to like have that difficult discussion is this is all so speculative, but it's still trading, even if it's Bitcoin, and it is a zero sum game. You bought Bitcoin from someone else, and they either took a profit selling it to you or they took a loss selling it to you. And it's the same in any other equity and any other crypto. And so no one is asking that question of, okay, if he is rich off of his own coin, that means he's taking profits. And if he's taking profits and is rich and is selling it, that means I'm probably buying it from him. Oh, like I just that I get to, but any Hexagon I've ever talked to doesn't. But
Yeah.
that to me is the scam.
But that's a distinguishing factor between Vitalik and what's the hex guy's name? Susan? I keep
Dick
forgetting it.
Hart.
Oh yeah, Richard. Yeah. So uh Vitalik has never really exhibited uh riches. Like he's not like driving he's not dressing fancy. He's not driving Lamborghinis. Like obviously he's got a shit ton of money, but it's never felt like he's in it for the money. It feels more like he doesn't want to be wrong, right? And I would not say that about Joseph Lubin. Joseph Lubin also doesn't want to be wrong, but like he is taking helicopters places and whatever. Like Joseph Lubin wants to be like a startup guru, um, and his whole like consensus thing, and that just leaves like a bad taste in my mouth. Um, so like not to defend Vitalik for sure, but he's got a different vibe than Richard Hart and Lubin. I think Lubin and Richard Hart, I would kind of like put them in the same bucket, and Vitalik's more like megalomaniac, like he's just like almost psychopathic. But
Do you think
whatever.
Vitalik's actually a human being? Like, could he not just be like the first AI robot that's so humanoid? Like, there's
Uh,
something weirdly not human about him.
yeah, yeah,
But it could also
yeah.
just be he's Russian.
It could be. He can also be like, you know, he just could lack empathy. Like he doesn't. He has. It could be like a form of autism or something like that, or like Asperger's, where he's just like he can't like process. He can't understand the ethics of what he's doing, or He just wants to do this thing. I don't know. Let me. All right. This is a weird segue, but I'm gonna throw this in there. This is the thing I wanted to show you earlier.
Okay.
This thing makes me so happy. It's a tiny dumpster,
Oh my god, that's incredible.
but which is kind of good. I feel like it's like an okay like shitcoin segue. Like you can just pop this open and drop your shitcoins in there.
That's awesome.
I was thinking about like putting little candles in there. It's tiny and make it like a little dumpster fires.
Oh my god.
Do they have waste management in LA?
Yes. Yeah.
Like this is like the New York dumpster. It's like behind every big ass building. I just love this little thing, and it's metal. Um, I don't know, I'm gonna figure out some weird project to do with that thing.
I look forward to
Makes
seeing it. But I wanna shift gears now. I'm done talking about
okay, yeah,
Bitcoin,
let's do it.
crypto, and shitty founders. I want to talk about first your hat.
Oh yeah.
Can you share with the audience the story behind the very first beefsteak? One of my favorite stories.
Um, the very first beefsteak. So,
Talk
all
to
right,
me.
so basically, we might be talking about different beefsteaks. So I used to do beefsteaks for normies
Oh,
um
tell me about that.
before Bitcoin beefsteaks. And that was when I was talking about like just not being involved in like the Bitcoin culture at all. Like I was trying to get people to do beefsteaks just because I like the jam. And then uh, in New York, Pierre was organizing meetups, Pierre Richard, and we would go like just drink at bars once a month. And which, by the way, if anyone is listening, we're gonna do this Friday at Pub Key in New York City. I'm trying to like revive that meeting the second Friday of every month. We're gonna go to Pub Key and get drunk. Or not? You don't have to get drunk. You don't even have to drink, but you should just come hang out with us. Anyways, those drinking sessions were happening, and Pierre was like doing organizing some steak dinners, and I went to those steak dinners, and just they were fun, but it was just like different. And I just said to Pierre, I was like, I'm doing this dinner. You know, here's what it is. Like we just everybody goes. It's like we have a bunch of steak. Q, have you been to a beefsteak?
I came to I went to the one that was ticketed in Miami in 22, and then I came to the after party one in 21 that you hosted at that house
Oh,
on the
like at our
island.
house.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. So yes, anyways, so we did. I told Pierre that, and Pierre was like, "Cool, let's do it. Like, let's just tell people." And so uh, we had the first one was in my backyard, and we did like a small one, and then probably like a couple months after that, Pierre did another steak dinner, and at that place, I don't know if I sat next to CK, but CK was there, and I was like, it was like me and Pierre and CK, and I was like, I told them about it, and CK was like, we'll do one on my roof, and I was like, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to, I was like, I'll come out there and we'll do it. Like, do you need to check with your girlfriend? He's like, no, we're just gonna make it up. And basically he was just like, let's do it. Like, and so basically in that moment he was like, I'm good if you're good. He's like, are you good? And I was like, I'm good. He's like, okay, let's do it. And then basically we did it. And like we had a the first like big big beefsteak, which was just 40 people, was on CK's roof at Bitcoin 2019, I guess. Um, and it was great. And it was like kind of chilly, but it was like nice outside. Um, no one had like ever done it before, so it's just like low expectations are the key to success. And
I was gonna say it is not low key anymore.
Yeah, no, but it's fun, and I do try to do we do some low key ones sometimes, um, wherever we can, um, and then I just like I just mark myself fortunate. Like I love doing beefsteaks, and I think there's kind of like a weird. Uh, I consider myself lucky. Like there's some kind of weird good timing. Like the time that it was happening was kind of like a little bit before people were crazy carnivores and everybody likes steak, and it was just like a little bit of a different event. Um, and so it just got traction there, and it's continued to move forward. And I love doing I love doing them. I love the people that come to them. Um, and I consider myself really lucky for those reasons. It's been an awesome thing.
Well, as someone who has had the great pleasure of attending a couple of beefsteaks, it is as good as everyone talks about, and the food is genuinely, like, truly some of the best steak I've ever eaten. So thank you
Awesome.
very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
I I want to make sure I get to ask this the cast iron question, but I you kind of hinted at something that has my curiosity a little bit more. But you mentioned you were doing beefsteaks for normies. I'm curious, like, how did you hear about beefsteak to begin with? Because it's like a historically significant thing. Joe Rogers, I remember, like, sent us a whole thing. He was like, everyone at Bitcoin Magazine needs to read this before you attend this. If this is your first beefsteak, like, this is not like just a casual thing. This is like a thing. So, how did you get inspired by it?
So I I like to read food history, and there's this book of historic food articles. The New Yorker, which is like an old magazine where people just submit articles, has always had a food section, and every year has a food edition. And they've done that forever. And so you can get like collections of food articles from the New Yorker in like a book form or whatever. So somebody gave me this one of them called Secret Ingredients, and it's just like a collection of food articles. And in there was a beefsteak article called "All You Can Hold for $5." Um, and I just recommend people read it no matter what. I just think it's. Have you read it? You must have read it. Oh, you didn't read it.
Wait, the article?
Yeah,
Yes, I did.
back when Joe
Yes.
forwarded it to you. I mean, it's fun. It's like it's stupid. You're reading it just kind of feels silly. People are saying ridiculous things, and it's from like 1939, so everybody, just like their language is different, and um, they're like, yeah, I don't know, it's good. Um, so I read that, and I was like, I just clicked. I was just like, this is what I want to do. Um, it just was so simple. It's just so simple. It's just like just eat a bunch of meat with your hands. And anything, and people want, and even I'm guilty of it too. Everyone wants to complicate it, but it's just like just bring the people out and just like throw them around a table and turn on some music and just like put good food in front of them, and they'll and everything else kind of falls by the wayside, and they'll like enjoy themselves and have a good time, hopefully. Um, and all the other bells and whistles kind of like distract from. It's kind of funny because they don't distract because it's like you're removing. Maybe they do distract. Like you're just removing all distractions just by just throwing steak on the table,
Well,
And then go ahead.
no, I don't mean to cut you off. I feel like it absolutely is that, because it's you're not trying to figure out what sides you want. You're not like looking for the dips or appetizers. It's like, no, I just want to eat as much meat as possible, and like the aprons are an excellent touch. Like, there's an aspect, like, I personally, I don't really drink I genuinely drink like maybe twice a year, and I save it for like very special occasions. And I even like was sipping on booze just because like that environment's literally like, no, let's just drink, eat beer, and have a grand old time. I was
Yeah.
chiefing like a chimney though, but that's just me.
That's good. That's good. It's a good
I cut you
sauce.
off though.
No, I don't. I don't remember what I was gonna say.
You were talking
Um,
about how like you were essentially you're simplifying the experience by
yeah,
you're just eating with your hands, serving steaks.
you're removing all the decisions from it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's like we get, you think you can make all these decisions in a day, but there really is a finite amount of decisions that the brain can make. It's like, and if you wake up and you have to like dig through your sock drawer for the right socks, then you're starting with like not a difficult decision, but just like a decision, and I use that example because I legit have only one sock. I have like 50 of them, but it's all the same sock. So it's like I pull open my drawer and I pull out two socks. Like there's no decision there. So I'm all about just like I don't give a fuck. I just need socks on my feet. I don't need a blue one and a blue one, or I don't need tension from having a blue one and a white one. I just like there's two socks in there and I grab two socks.
I feel
No offense.
personally attacked right now. I have a drawer full of just like wild, absurd socks.
Which is fine. I just have I that's totally fine for you. But I just like it's not my decision. And then the other thing, but I'm just giving that as an example. Like you come to a beefsteak, like the only decision is like what beer are you gonna drink, or what beer are you gonna drink next, or like it's just simple. Like everybody's getting the same food all the time, and um, it makes it easier. In my mind, it makes it easier to be present. It's like somebody hands you a menu, you got to order. What are we gonna get? How are we gonna share it? Then there's three of us, but they bring us four of the things on the plate. Like, well, what are we gonna do with the fourth one? Like, do we cut it in three, or do we cut it like who's somebody gonna eat it? And then somebody eats it without asking. You're like, you motherfucker, who's gonna do that? Like, what are you like? There's none of that there. It's just like everybody's just kind of rolling with the punches, and there's no other way to go about it.
So I gotta ask, cast iron skillet or stainless steel?
Um, this is so funny. I have started like four times to like write a response about this whole thing, and then I never complete it. I'm just that's just how I operate. I never complete writing anything.
So just
Um,
know I will clip this and I will send it to you so you can share it on your
okay,
socials. So that way, like, think of this as your opportunity to write it and then
all
you
right.
can ship it to the world.
Here's my more concise answer. I think cast iron and stainless steel pots and pans, like comparing them, it's just apples and oranges. It's a very different material. I think, and then there's all these other factors that are going to weigh into what you're using and why. Um, usually, not usually, always cast iron is a poor conductor, right? And the reason having a poor conductor to cook is good is because you put it on your pan or you put it on your stove, you turn on your stove. Regardless of how good your stove is, the pan's going to get hot. Like the cast iron skillet is going to get hot. And I think probably cast iron skillets became popular a long time ago because they compensated for low heat cooking surfaces. Um, in other words, like you're cooking on a wood
Like
burning
a hot
stove,
plate.
yeah, or a hot plate, or even before electricity, like you're cooking on a wood
Right.
burning stove.
Okay.
And so what you need to do is you need to get that thing hot, and you need for it to stay hot, right? And the reason a poor conductor, it takes a long time for heat to conduct in there. It also takes a long time to conduct out. Um, the downside is like we all live in apartments and shit now. In New York City, especially, you put it on you have a low flame that's like a 40,000 BTU flame, which is low. You get the cast iron skillet hot, then you put a big ass steak in there. Um, your the, the temperature of the cast iron is going to drop faster than the flame can keep it hot. Um, so in small apartments, cast iron skillets are better because they'll hold heat better and you can sear better. Whereas if you were using a
Mm,
stainless steel skillet at a 40,000 BTU stove, they don't conduct that much better, but they usually have copper cores, and then they do conduct better, right? So like they'll get hot faster, but they also cool down faster when you put a cold steak in there. Or and not even it doesn't the steak doesn't have to be cold. It deals more with like the mass, like how much of the steak is there relative to how much pan is there.
okay. So you almost want
So
like extra pan space so that that
extra,
heat can get sent into the
yeah,
section with the meat.
extra pan space, but also extra pan mass, right? Like
Mm.
the mass that's there with the iron, like a 10-inch cast iron skillet weighs a lot more than a 10-inch stainless steel skillet.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so that mass just holds that energy a lot better. Um, the downsides of the cast iron are you don't because they everyone says they have like a non-stick skillet or non-stick surface. They don't, which I would kind of call like semi-non-stick. It's like Bitcoin is anonymous. It's actually like pseudonymous. It's like doesn't really. It's not really non-stick, but you it's reactive. Iron is reactive, so like you don't want to cook with acid in a cast iron skillet, and that's where the stainless steel comes in. Like if you have a nice stove that has like not a 40,000 BTU burner, but like an 80,000 BTU burner, or even a 100,000 BTU burner, which is really hot, you can get that thing hot as fuck and sear a steak in it and take it out and put whatever you want, like wine and butter and cream in there in that skillet. Or sorry, I keep saying skillet. I'm gonna
Cast
say
iron.
I'm gonna say skillet is cast iron, pan is stainless steel. If you put all that stuff in a pan, um, you can make that sauce or whatever you're making, and just like there's no reactions are happening. Like stainless steel is basically inert. Whereas if you dump white wine in a cast iron skillet, one iron is reactive with acid, and that can taste weird, and it basically creates battery acid. I don't know if you ever put like aluminum foil. Like you should never really cook with tomato in cast iron skillets because it's also uh
Acidic.
yeah, it's also acidic. Just tomatoes just have acid in them. And
Interesting.
it destroys the surface of the quote unquote nonstick surface that you've like seasoned onto there. But it doesn't that seasoning doesn't disappear. It fucking dissolves into your tomato sauce. And you don't want to be necessarily eating that, partly because it's not delicious, but probably also partly because it's technically like a form of polymerization where like oil turns into plastic over time. Like it's like a weird
Oh.
thing. There's like a weird thing going on. So it's basically like you can sear a steak in both of them. You can make a sauce in a stainless steel pan. I wouldn't make a sauce in a cast iron pan.
Okay.
Unless maybe it was like super like just cream and cognac or something like that. Like no, like a zero
No, nothing
acid sauce.
acidic.
Yeah, yeah, zero acid. So you could make like if you want to like saute onions and mushrooms and like put a drop of cream in there, that would work. But
Okay.
like white wine, squeeze of lemon, never squeeze lemon into a cast iron skillet. That's off limits in my opinion.
So we are at the hour and I could not be sadder. right now, Josh. Like genuinely, I'm very sad. I have one more if I could steal you for one more
Yeah, sorry.
question.
I'm not like I'm just chilling. I've got like a full cup of rum here, so I'm not in a rush.
I mean, honestly, I could keep talking to you, so don't tempt me with a good
Yeah.
time like this. But how often do you clean your cast iron?
Oh, hmm. I that's a good question. So I think how often you clean it correlates directly to how often you use it.
Hmm.
Um, if I make it, if I do like if I make like a king hell mess in my cast iron skillet, I do not hesitate personally to like put some Dawn on a sponge and scrub it out. Um, but I use my cast iron skillet at least once a day, if not twice a day, right?
Mm,
So if you're using your cast iron skillet once a week, I would not wash it with Dawn and put it back in the oven. Like if I wash mine out with Dawn, I'm probably going to use it the next morning to like I don't know, make quesadillas for kids for lunch or something. Like I just my cast iron skillet is constantly being used for anything that doesn't have acid. um, where
tomato sauce
so
goes in in the pan.
yeah. Yeah, so if you were, I would say like I feel like the all these kind of if you use a cast iron skillet twice a month, I would not wash it with Dawn after every time you use it twice a month. Um,
Okay.
but if you're cranking food out of it all the time, I would not hesitate to just like make sure there's not crap building up in there. And also sometimes I'll cook salmon in there, and if I don't clean it after I cook salmon and I throw a steak in there, it just tastes like salmon.
Okay. That makes sense though. I right now personally am disgusted at the fact that I spent 3 years living with a roommate using sharing a cast iron skillet that he was very insistent on. Like it was a once every few months we would clean it thing. We didn't use it every day, so I think there was like some validity to that. But there were points where I would look at him and be like, I'm not eating eggs off of that right now, man. Like there's literally just like charred bits scattered
Yeah,
around this. But I'm a little more finicky like that.
it should be clean. It's okay for it to be clean. I'm
Okay.
with you
Okay. Thank you for validating me. But
though.
I have I want to ask about because at most beefsteaks, at least the ones that I've been to, you grill. Like you're not really worrying about skillet. So are you just like whatever? Are you in the camp of grill is the most superior form of preparing food, specifically meat?
Hmm.
And if it's not, what is your genuine preferred method?
I do think that if you're gonna be eat a steak preparation, when I say steak preparation, I just mean like if you're gonna eat a tender piece of meat in like a medium rare temperature range, like that whole like kind of like 125 to 140 range, um, I do think that grilling with real wood is
Mm,
the tastiest way to go. Um, but all that said, like I do that for beefsteaks when and where I can. But you know, when I'm at home, I love it. But I also just for reasons of simplicity, I cook a lot of steak in cast iron skillets. It's like it's easy. It's in your house. You just crank that thing up and just throw a steak in there. It's like fast. Like
you're not venturing in that cold to go grill in the winter
yeah,
months.
yeah, building a fire, it's just like it's like a ridiculous proposition. But that's part of why I like doing a beefsteak because the whole thing is a ridiculous proposition.
I mean,
Um,
if I could be so forward as to say, like, if I was in your family, like if I was one of your kids, like I would be circling the day when dad's gonna like go back outside and cook us a steak on the grill. Like that would be like a day in the house in the Awayslice household where I'm just like celebrating, like, let's go back on the grill, baby.
my kids do not do that.
They just don't appreciate it yet. Like,
Well, that's
are
what it
you
is. Yeah, it's like you take everything for granted. We all do. We take what
valid?
we have for granted.
We absolutely all do. Um, Are your kids picky eaters?
One of my kids is a picky eater. I'll make like a full spread of just like 8 things, and I'll put mine. And my younger kid will be like, "What am I gonna have for dinner?" He's
Does
just
it
like, "I
like
want to
eat
like
you
turn
inside?
the. I just want to like turn the whole table over and walk out of the room."
I slaved in the kitchen for this.
Yeah, but it
Oh.
do be like that.
As a truly obnoxious picky eater when I was a kid, like I was so annoying. I would require my mom to serve when she would make pasta. I would eat just plain pasta and then like she would keep the tomato sauce separate. And I was like very anti tomatoes growing up for like I didn't like tomatoes. And amongst other things too. And
Did you turn the
honestly,
corner there? Are you back on? I guess you're on the Rouse wagon
oh, dude, I'm
now.
like
Yeah,
I don't eat peppers really. I'm not a big spicy guy. Bell peppers just don't do it for me. But beyond that, like I eat anything and everything.
yeah.
I I laughed about this story with my mom. Like for example, broccoli. Ugh, I growing up hated it. Like wouldn't eat. Now it's like the first thing I go to if there's like one of those like sort of veggie plates with a dip. And it was because I was in college, and I will never forget. I like staying in DC for the summer, went out to lunch at a Chinese restaurant with a friend, and I ate all the food I ordered, and it came with like a small side of broccoli. And I am like a broke, starving college student, and I finish all of the rice, all of that. We got like dumplings to start too, and I'm like, I'm still fucking hungry. And I look at my plate, I'm like, I got broccoli. Like, all right, eat the fucking broccoli because there's nothing else to eat right now. And you don't have any more money to go buy food. So I ate the broccoli, and I kid you not, I think I was 20 years old at the time. And I text my mom and I literally go, Mom, you will not believe what I ate today willingly and actually enjoyed.
Hunger is the best sauce, man.
Dude,
It really
once
is.
your
It's just
kids
like,
don't have your kitchen, once your youngest doesn't have you like
yeah,
just cooking every meal, you will get that. I promise you, you will get that phone call of like, oh man, I miss your cooking.
maybe. I will say, like, I have a similar story with my kid. Like, my younger kid, just like BLTs. Like, who the fuck doesn't like a BLT? And so, like, we did this whole thing where like we got up, we went on like a long hike, and we just went to this like deli out in the woods, and I was just like, let's get BLTs. And my kid was like, I don't eat BLTs, and I was like, well, that's what we're having. So like it's like BLTs are nothing, and now like BLTs are just like they live for fucking BLTs. Like they're just like, let's get a BLT, got BLTs, like. And then because you just throw them out, and they're just like they have a bottle of water, and they're just fucking starving, and they're just like, oh, so good. What am I gonna eat? Um, but it's true. It's like you get like food in front of you, and just like I need to eat food right now.
Yeah, like
There's
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 no such
this
thing as a
like
picky hungry eater. Sorry, I'm muting
I
myself.
I forget what the book is called, but there's like it's a great book. It's a total downer, but I forget what it's called. It's by Viktor Frankl. It's about the
Man's search for meaning.
Holocaust. Yes, there's a there's a scene, not a scene, but he's just telling a story in that where he's like they're in the camp and the person next to him is having nightmares, and he's like I want to wake them up to bring them out of their nightmare, but I'm worried that this reality is worse than whatever he's dreaming. And I was just like, that is so harsh. I mean, um, that was like a hard thing for me to. I was listening to it. That's a hard thing for me to hear. But it's just like in the moment, it's just like appreciating whatever the moment was. Like just being totally cognizant of how good or bad the moment is. And obviously that was a terrible moment for him, but um, just like you get to this point where it's like it's just you have food, eat it, and hopefully we get to that. Like we don't take that shit for granted. Um, whether it's broccoli or BLT or like steak at a beefsteak, like hopefully we can be there and like enjoy it for what it is in that moment. I feel like I just brought the whole tone of this thing into a different place.
No, not at all, man. I like it's so important, I think, for us to appreciate the privilege and the opportunities that are in front of us and just, you know, focus on being grateful. Like I
Yeah,
genuinely I'm so lucky that I have not had to really worry about my next meal for most of my life. I have a roof over my head and like one thing that I often, reflect and think about is the fact that like both my parents come from Iran. All of my cousins still live in Iran. Like that's how close I am to have not being born in America and then having all that I have here. And so I think I have a weird appreciation just for like even like being able to eat some of the foods that we eat. Like I was thinking like literally making avocado toast for my girlfriend and I would like made the comment. I was like, if we ever go visit Iran, like you're gonna need to figure out something else to eat for breakfast. Like I don't have avocados. Like there's no avocados in Iran. Like they're not importing that. Um, and it's interesting. I think the way that we in America in particular, and even in like more most of the developed world, like we're so spoiled with the options that we have and like the quality of that food.
yeah. Oh my God, options. We've got like you go to the store, we've got like 24 mustards. It's like it's almost like we can't. It's too many options. You
Have
can't
you
decide
ever
what mustard to get.
have you ever read Malcolm Gladwell's book, What the Dog Sees?
What the dog sees? No.
Yes, it's this one. So I only say it because you brought up mustard, but literally the first chapter, or actually maybe not the first, but one of the first few chapters of this book is each chapter is a different story. And I kid you not, it's literally like he starts it like, have you ever noticed that there are like 30 different types of mustard? But there's
Yeah.
really only like one ketchup, and then he like goes into like the science behind like the taste components and structure and how he essentially explains that because the ingredients in ketchup essentially cover the five taste profiles, it is the ultimate dip, and therefore like any and all variations of ketchup are significantly inferior to just original ketchup. But like with mustard, like all of the different variations actually elevate mustard because it adds a new flavor profile to mustard.
Interesting. I get behind that.
Dude, honestly, like I I I have a newfound appreciation for ketchup after having like read that chapter. It like blew my mind. And I was like, honestly, that makes so much sense. And now I use cooked tomatoes on everything. That was what got me over the tomato hump. Raw tomatoes are
That
still kind
that
of like iffy to
that
me.
that chapter.
Literally that chapter got me over the
That's
tomato
awesome.
hump.
You should
Um
write Malcolm a letter. Say thank you.
I might honestly. I've yeah, that would be funny. Um the only other thing I was gonna mention that I found like very like almost kismet is that you brought up Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning after we had talked about CK and doing that beefsteak on his roof because weirdly the time in my life that I was reading Man's Search for Meaning, I was staying at CK's house and I was reading it on that exact roof.
Oh yeah, it's a good roof.
Oh man, I was very sad when they left that A left that roof and B left California.
Yeah.
But what is what is like your favorite thing to cook for A yourself and then B for other people?
Hmm. Um. I really like sharing things that I like to cook for myself. Um, it's probably super simple stuff. Like it's just actually, yeah. I'm gonna come back to what I cook for myself. I don't know. I have a good answer to that, but I would say
Okay.
that because the answer is like what's cleanest, usually like leftovers. Like I have a big pet peeve about like wasting food. So like I'll go
Love
in there and
that.
be like I'll go in the fridge and be like, what is about to be thrown away, and I'll just like you know microwave it, whatever. Um, but in terms of cooking for people, I really like to. Uh, will often kind of lean towards like whatever is the best thing that I can get. Like that answer is not like a uniform answer. It's like what I can find that's good at a supermarket or the farmer's market or whatever. And then I like to hopefully like kind of give them something, share with them something that they haven't had before. Um, without being weird about it, like, and I'm not trying to like feed people like pig splains and shit, but just like some simple combination where they're like, oh, I could do, like where they can actually, the best scenarios are like, I could do this. Like that's what they say. They're like, oh, this is really good. I could do this. Um, and because often the answer is, you're right. You could do that. Like you just have to do it.
Yeah, you're
Um,
just a lazy shit. Get off your ass and do it.
yeah, yeah. Does your family make like Persian food and stuff like to
Oh,
eat
all the
or
time.
yeah? See,
It
I love
it's
that shit.
it's so
A lot
good.
of people have never had it. And it's not that hard to make. I mean, it's like it is hard to make it well, but it's like people can figure that out, like, and then there's like variations on that stuff, and
I think now too though, we live in a time where it's so like because information is so easily acceptable, like you genuinely and there are so many talented people who are like deconstructing things like I have a go-to like, my family doesn't eat at Chipotle anymore, and we haven't for a couple of years, and it's because there was one night we went, and everything from the rice, beans, the meat, even the guac, like, I had found recipes of, like, Chipotle copycat, like, these my beans homemade better than Chipotle's, my rice better than Chipotle's. My dad just looked at me, he's like, "You make this better, like, we don't need to ever eat at Chipotle." And I'm trying to perfect because I have an addiction to Panda Express. Mainly, it's the MSG they put in the food, but
cool.
I'm trying to lock down how to make their orange chicken and their chow mein. But once I do that, it's game over. And I can make a good copycat In and Out burger, and then I just cheat and I still use their spread.
But there is something that he said, like, for I, I mean, I'll just use your example. Chipotle is great example because even if you can make all that stuff better, it's an incredible amount of work for what you could get at Chipotle for $15.
Totally.
Right?
The
So it's
beans
like,
alone is like if I don't start cooking the beans before 1, it's like, all right, it's not gonna work tonight.
yeah. Yeah, so it's like all that stuff. Like I'm with you. Actually, we used to do this with my with my family. We did a couple years ago actually. We would we would did a Taco Bell Christmas where each person in the family made at home an item from Taco Bell.
Ooh.
And that was pretty fun. And we did like made like chili cheese burritos and like crunch wraps and stuff. And I mean, it's silly. And if you start Googling, it's just like, this is like something people do. It's like they just like go in and just like make all those things. But then you do it, it's like, that is so much work. And you always have leftovers. You're like, what am I going to do with all these refried beans? Like, I can't make more crunch wraps with them. And so then it's like, there is a, there is just like there's something to be said. There's just like, there's a huge downside to convenience, but there is also an upside. Um,
I don't doubt like it goes I think down to how much time do you really have to do a lot of these things and like how clean do you want to eat? Um, but ultimately, like I think it's at this point in time, like there is no excuse. If you don't cook for yourself, it's not because the information's not there. It's more just I think a self-inflicting wound. And like I've had this conversation, like my girlfriend's not a big cook. And it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy where at a certain point you never learned how to cook or you were never interested in trying to learn how to cook. And then the times that you do attempt because you haven't taken the time to like refine the skill, the food you make is just not good. And so like it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy over and over again for anyone who listens and is not, finds themselves almost overwhelmed in the kitchen. Like what advice would you give to someone who's trying to cook more for themselves?
yeah. Hmm. I mean, I feel like the thing that happens that you didn't mention is there's also like a generational thing where like you weren't taught to cook or you didn't help your parents cook or whatever. Um,
So were you I did not. Like
I
I
feel
didn't.
like I kind of feel like cooking almost skips a generation where like my grandma was a great cook and my mom was a terrible cook because my
Okay.
grandma cooked all the great food, right? But then my mom didn't really retain any of the cooking that my grandma did. So like I started cooking because I wanted to have good food. I mean, cooking really is like it's like a way to it's cathartic and it's a great process, but it's also just like a way to get good food in an affordable manner whenever you want it. Um, and it's also a form of appreciation, like you're appreciating the food that you're getting and ingredients and stuff like that. In terms of just like if you can't cook for shit and you want to start cooking, unfortunately, I think the real answer is you just have to mess things up. Like you have to make mistakes in order to get good. You know, it's like how do you have a good beefsteak? You have like 10 bad beefsteaks, right? And you don't want to hear about those beefsteaks, but it is like the process. You know, like you just have to have like go through the process and refine it. Um, so maybe it could be something like choose a dish and make it over and over again until you like it, and then choose another dish. Um, Another thing that I think people could do that is more monotonous and way more like probably for the fringe crazy people, but like get a cookbook that is a good cookbook and make all those recipes
Mhm.
like throughout the course of 6 months or something. You know, like and for me those recipes, those cookbooks would be like I like this guy called Yotam Ottolenghi, who's like a Israeli dude. And he has this kind of like fast casual restaurant thing going on in London. And his cookbooks are awesome. And they're a little bit wonky. They might have some weird ingredients, but I think for the most part, it's pretty approachable and doable for home cooks. And they're forgiving recipes. So, like, if you mess them up, unless you totally forget it, like, even a little bit messed up, they'll still be pretty good. Um, and you can go through that and just like have like a repertoire of
Oh my
like
god, these
things.
look so good. I'm sorry.
You looking
I
at them?
smoked weed before we went on air, so like, oh
You
man,
looking at
like
them?
this saffron pasta. Oh,
Yeah, they're great cookbooks. Also, those cookbooks are great gifts for people. Like if your parents cook and stuff like that, like they're good cookbooks to, and they're beautiful. They're like coffee table books almost.
dude, my mom, she when she whips out the cookbook, I know something good's coming. And the other day, so she being like an Iranian woman from Iran, like she doesn't have American cookbooks, so none of her cookbooks are in English. So there's one fatal flaw in that while I can speak Farsi fluently, I can't read. So I've already decided my kids are going to Farsi school and they're gonna have to learn how to both read and write so that they can interpret the cookbook back to me.
Awesome.
but it's entirely in Farsi, but has all of these incredible recipes of just like how it's like properly done back in Iran. Um, I have taken some liberties on some of these recipes though. I've like become more confident in my like exploratory ways, and I found I found some things I take Western flair into, but I bought so much fucking saffron recently. It was kind of silly. So always looking for saffron recipes. So that's why I'm like, oh, jaw dropped. I can use a new pasta.
So there's the rice dish. I would call it tahdig. Is that what you would call it? Where it's
Yes,
like it's crispy
tahdig.
and you
Yeah.
tahdig.
Okay. You want to know the secret?
I mean, I feel is that does that have saffron in it? Does
If
is
you get
tahdig
it,
where you like mix saffron and yogurt and rice and then you make the crust, or is that something else?
no. So it typically is. I would say that the variations of it are the simplest version. You could literally just leave oil. Like the easiest way to do it is you rinse the rice as much as possible to get the starch off, and then you boil it. Just water up to this knuckle, and that the first knuckle on your pointer finger,
Hmm.
and put like a few drops of oil. When all the water is essentially been absorbed by the rice, then you make sure the pan is up on high, usually 3 to 5 minutes, but don't let it go too much longer than that. And then after that, then you put it down to low for like about 20 more minutes. That's like lazy tahdig. Then like the restaurant quality stuff, what they're doing is they have way more water in the rice. Like it's drowning in rice. So once
That's
the
what I do.
rice
I cook it like it's pasta. I
so
like
that
rinse
that's
it and
yes, that's the real key is they rinse it in cold water after like they drain it, rinse it in cold water, and then in the back in the pot itself, you can do anything as complex as like a yogurt, butter, oil, and saffron mixture, or something as simple as like yogurt, butter, or even just butter, or even just oil. So it truly is just what you want to put the flavor. Like if you want an extra crunch, do yogurt. I personally I don't like the crunch from the yogurt. I actually like the crunch more from like the butter oil mixture.
I
Uh,
100%.
so
Something about the yogurt like gets stuck in your teeth. It's like a, it's not as like a chip. It's more like a, I don't
soft.
know. Yeah.
But then there are like other tatties too, where like they'll before they put the rice back down, they'll like slice very thin layers of potato, and then
Yeah.
there's a layer
Like
of
a shit
potato,
ton
and that
of dill.
yes, or even like my favorite when I was a kid was bread. And there's a food truck down in San Diego that I've been DMing, and I'm like, "You please, can you just let me know the next time you come to LA?" And I know how absurd that is, but I was so sad that I missed you guys. It's called Tahdig Tacos, and they make the bread tahdigs, and then they put like Persian dishes inside, but they also do things like just carne asada or like whatever you want. They have like a Nutella with bananas and whipped cream, and I'm just looking at all of these like, oh my god, these must be the most incredible tacos in the world.
Have you ever had like hardcore Korean bibimbap where they make you like the crispy rice in like the stone bowl? Have you ever had that in a restaurant?
Not like I've had a bibimbap, but not in the way that you're describing.
So like there's like a big stone bowl and they just put that stone bowl on a burner and then they like put oil in there and put rice and the rice gets really crispy and then they put all this shit on top.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like this is like a thing that exists in other cultures and I every time that I brought like another culture person to have a bibimbap, they're like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what like." It's like every culture's favorite part of the rice is like they cook a huge pot of rice, and then everybody like fights for the crispy parts. And I feel like in Korea they just like do a small bowl of crispy rice, and it's like what every other culture is like. Oh, why did we do that? And but for that reason, like I remember I used to date this Colombian woman, and we brought her to have bibimbap, and she was just like this. All she ever wanted after that was bibimbap. She's like, let's just go have a bibimbap. And so, but I feel like I feel like there needs to be like a Korean, like I would call it. Does your family call it Persian food or Iranian food? I call
Iranian.
it Iranian food. You would call
Oh,
it
actually,
Iranian.
we would just say like, to be honest, I don't think we would. I would equate that to like speaking in the third person almost. I would just be like, are we just having horm sabzi?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Like in New York, my friends would be. They do not want me to call it Iranian food. I am not. I wish I understood better the history of Persia
Oh,
to Iran and all that.
ah, fuck. The book's in the other room, dude. I've been diving
You
into like
should.
the history of it, and I'm loving it. Like, oh my god, it it's such a beautiful and rich history. And
Oh
I,
yeah,
I will
for sure.
say, I will say this: that part of the world for millennia had been called, like, there was a tribe of Iranians that always existed there. And so that region, parts of it at least, were always considered Iran, at least within the larger Persian Empire. And so the moment when the Shah of Iran at the time said outwardly, like, hey, we are Iran, we are not Persia. That was sort of this invitation to the rest of the world to be like, hey, like, we like our secrets here. We actually appreciated that none of you guys knew what the fuck we did because we want it that way. And yeah, we are trying to open the doors and like welcome you into our culture and into our lives. So I like sharing that little tidbit because I think it's
Interesting.
it speaks to the warmth of Iranians in particular.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something that I'm totally ignorant of, and they don't teach it to us here. Like it's not like something we learned in school somewhere. Um. Anyways, I just to finish that thought, there should be a Iranian version of like bibimbap restaurant, just like where you get
Okay.
like a personal tahdig in a bowl, right? Where it's like all crispy and shit, and like how cool would that be? Personal tahdigs.
Okay. I'm gonna share an idea that I've been cooking up. And I say cooking up intentionally because it's a restaurant idea, but it's a like fast casual restaurant. Because my issue with Persian food, especially when you go to a restaurant, you've been to a proper Persian restaurant, right? And like gotten a portion of rice that's insane for one person to eat,
Yeah. Yes.
and then
Yes.
like the meat on top.
They throw
So
all that shit away too. Like I feel like 50% of the rice they make gets thrown away.
absolutely. And then on top of that too, though, like the cost of one plate at a Persian restaurant is significantly more than one plate at pretty much any other type of cuisine. And I would equate it to the fact that it's because the plate is honestly meant for two people. It's not really like oh, I'm going to eat this whole thing by myself. Like, no, like share that. So if you actually cut the portion size in half, and then you turned around and sort of, all right, you're getting a half size of that portion. You might get a quarter of the meat and then like a little bit of this or that, kind of like a Chipotle style. Like these are all of the ready-made options ready for you. And it's just boom, boom, boom. You cut the price point in half, you cut the portion size in half. So you can still arguably make a similar margin depending on packaging and other sort of
Yeah.
operational expenses,
Yeah.
but as
Whatever
far as your
factor.
food expense goes, it should operationally sort of translate over easily and nicely. I just don't know if white people will go eat there.
I mean, you just gotta pump it up. Make it like just quick and affordable. Just like I feel like I've seen like every ethnic version of Chipotle, and I've loved all of them. Like
Right?
there's like a Mediterranean one where I had lunch with CK there a couple weeks back. I thought it
Kava.
was so good. In New York, it's called Bispas, like BIS space BAS. Just like you pick out your starch and you get and you get like shawarma or chicken shawarma or lamb or falafel, and then you get all these sauces. And it's just like Chipotle, but Middle Eastern. And then for a while, there was an Indian one where it's like you start with basmati rice and you get shag paneer and this and that, and you get all these pickles. And do you want a piece of bread or do you want? And I just think probably the flavor profiles of like real Indian food just like didn't get traction, but I loved that place for lunch. Like it was so good. It was like a really good Indian meal for like 12 to 15 bucks with a bunch of protein in it, and like the flavor profiles are there. But
Like,
crispy rice is you could build an empire on crispy rice.
dude, I honestly, crispy rice with spicy tuna. Like, if you don't order that at sushi, I feel like you might be a fed.
Your filter is out. Now people know.
uh,
Now you need to be suspicious of anyone that orders it first.
if you beat me to the order, then you must be listening to the pod.
Yeah,
But it clicked in my head, dude. It is very late in New York City right now. Um, I will leave you with the final word. I don't want to steal too much more of your time, but this has been an absolute pleasure and a treat of a conversation, my friend. Um, I might bother you to come back on. I will give you some time to like rest, recover, and recuperate, but we might have to properly just pick up the cooking side of this conversation because I think I could talk to you about food for days on end.
good times. Yeah, I'm gonna work on my individual. You said Tadig? Tadig. I was saying it
Tadig,
wrong. Tadig.
Tadig.
Okay, I'm gonna get to work on that. My final word would just be, uh, don't forget to make time for your people. You know, like it was great to just chill and chat with you, and for whatever Bitcoin does, you know, like it's all for naught if we don't enjoy each other and like take some time and have a drink or have some good food, have some crispy rice together.
Absolutely, brother. Uh, Awayslice, thank you again for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been another episode of Late Night Bitcoin with Q. We will be back next week with another